Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Espen Kraft, and today we're going to take a look at the PG-2K controller from Retroaktiv. And this controller is really the one to have, so whether you have a stock 3P, stock MKS-30, any of the Kiwi modded 3Ps like I have here, or any other CC modified 3P or MKS-30, this controller can control them all. You can even set this up with your own CC messages and use this as a controller for other gear if you want to. So let's check out some of what it can do. I'm using a Kiwi modded 3P in this video, and Kiwi offers several mods for your 3P, but common for all of these mods are an endless amount of button pressing to access the different features. There's loads of features accessed by different combinations of buttons on the 3P, and that's why this new controller is so great, because you can just skip all that button pressing on the 3P and just use the controller for all the 3P features and functionality. But whether you have a stock 3P MKS-30 or a modified one, the controller at its core will let you access features, parameters, and change values easy and fast with knobs and faders, and the values you change will be reflected on the screen. I particularly enjoy that you get a graphical representation of the waveform on the screen when you change envelopes and stuff like that. It makes it easier and quicker to see the shape of your waveform as you're modifying it with the controller. The PG-2K does come with 32K of onboard memory, so you can use this to store your own banks and export sysex, import sysex. You can export and import Kiwi banks, etc. And you can also use the PG-2K to import your stock 3P or MKS-30 patches and convert this into a sysex bank that can be stored on your computer for backup. And I'm happy to say that exclusively on the PG-2K only, every unit is shipped out with a brand new patch bank by me for the Kiwi modded 3P. 64 brand new patches. That sounds awesome. One of the features that a Kiwi mod will give your 3P that the stock unit does not have is an arpeggiator. Now, this is not an advanced arpeggiator, but you have the usual modes like up, and down, and random, and you can also sync it to incoming clock if you want to. In a Kiwi modded 3P, accessing the arpeggiator and the different modes involves a lot of button pressing, very cumbersome, but with this controller, it's an easy breeze. So let's set it up quick and dirty and do some arpeggiating. I'll show you sync later. The Kiwi 3P also has a unique pattern generator that can be used to modulate the VCF and VCA, as well as to clock other things as the arpeggiator and the sequencer. Let's check that out. So that's the sound I'm going to use, and in the menu for patterns I can set up how to trigger the pattern, incoming clock, etc. I can set up if it's going to modulate the VCA or the VCF. And I can tailor the pattern itself by using the rotary encoder and the cursor keys. So let's check out how it sounds, and I'm using the level values to add depth. As the Kiwi mod greatly enhances and expands the sequencer functionality of a 3P, it also becomes more cumbersome and exhausting to access and edit from the buttons on the 3P itself. But again, with this controller, things get a lot more easy and fast. So let's check out, let's make a little sequence here. I'm using the rotor encoder to expand the length of the sequence. And again, the sequence can be synced to external clock. It can also be sent out MIDI if you want to. Be aware that setting up the sequence in the controller doesn't mean it's happening inside the 3P. You have to upload the sequence to the 3P. I'll show you that in a minute. You can also specify what type of notes you want to input, whole notes, quarter notes, etc., etc. It's all printed on the controller itself in small red printing. So to input a note into the sequence, you just hold down the shift button on the controller itself and you enter the note on the keyboard. And you can see in the display what note you're inputting. I'm doing all the notes in the same lengths here, 16 notes. And this is track 1 of this sequence. But again, I'm not working on the sequencer in the 3P itself. I'm now working on the controller. So I've set up a sequence in the controller. Now I'll have to transfer that sequence over to the 3P. So by pressing Shift and the VCA envelope select button on the controller, I'm now uploading this sequencer edit to the 3P. And then it can be run. So let's do it. So as long as I have polyphony to spare, I can add a track to this sequence. So let's do that, and using whole notes for this. And to do that, I have to tell the controller that I'm using whole notes instead of quarter notes that I previously did on track 1. So this time, before inputting the different notes, I'm specifying the note length first. And the display will also show me the note length. As you can see here, a whole note for this first note. So I'll inputting a few bass notes here and see how it sounds. Again, I have to upload the sequence edit to the 3P sequencer. And now this starts to sound like a old school computer game. So let's do some chords over that. Again, I'll show you sync in a little bit. Another thing that Retroaktiv has on their controllers are a great patch generator. And this is no different. You can specify what type of sound you want to generate, and you can also filter out parameters you don't want to be part of the sound generated. So let's check it out. Let's try some bass sounds first. Poly sounds. Some pads. bells. Or you can just initialize everything. As always, a patch generator can be a hit and a miss, but it's a great starting point. Now the assign functions allows you to create complex modulations of multiple synth parameters using one control source, such as the assign sliders, expression pedals, aftertouch, or any CC actually. So let's do a quick example. I want to use that fader to the right of the display, the assign controller A, which is one of 7 different control sources I can use, and each control source can have 5 destinations. So for this first controller source, the controller A, the fader to the right of the display, I want that to access multiple parameters at once. So my first destination is the filter cutoff. I'm setting that to use a value between 70 and 127. So this controller now controls the filter cutoff with a value between 70 and 127. The dedicated filter cutoff controls the whole range. But I also want this controller assigned to access another parameter as well. So for my destination number 2, I want to access the envelope number 2, release time. So now when I move this fader downwards, I decrease the filter, but I also decrease the release time. And moving the filter up opens up the filter, but also opens up the release time. All from the same fader. And again, if you have a master keyboard with a mod wheel you want to use as a controller assign, you can set this up using CC messages as the controller source. I'm using the Ayla S2400 here drum machine to check if the clock output of this can drive the arpeggiator or sequencer of the 3P. So this is a bass sound. I'm setting the arpeggiator to on, starting the Ayla. So let's see if it arps in sync. So that's working. How about the sequencer? Let's use the sequence from before and sync that up. Let's check it out. Now, if you're a purist, you would always want the PG-200 for the Roland JX-3P or MKS-30. I don't blame you for that, but there's nothing against having another controller as well that can do more for practical purposes. The PG-200 can be stored on a shelf and you can have it as a display piece. But when it comes to using a controller for getting the most out of a synth, sometimes a modern controller is the right move. And this PG-2K for the 3P, I think it's fantastic. So if you're interested in this controller, I'll leave a link for you in the video description to check out, or you can go directly to the Retroaktiv website. As always, I'm Espen Kraft and I am the 80s. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Cheers. This is the PG-2K from Retroaktiv, and this is a controller for your Roland JX-3P and MKS-30. Today we're checking it out.